Hey, Powerhouse, I have a very special invitation just for you. I would love to invite you to the Powerhouse Lawyers Retreat happening September 27th through October 1st in beautiful Ocean Isle, North Carolina. The Powerhouse Lawyers Retreat is a life-changing experience that every single woman in law not only deserves, but needs. It's a 4-night getaway in a luxurious oceanfront home with all of your needs taken care of in a house full of other powerhouse women who want the exact same things as you. It's more than a mastermind and more than a community and more than just networking connections. Powerhouse Lawyers Retreat is like nothing that's ever been done before in the legal profession. The only words that I can come up with to describe it are life-changing. And if you don't believe me, just ask any of the past attendees who describe it as lightning in a bottle. One of the best experiences of their life, changing the entire trajectory of their career, and a solid differentiation point between life before and after the retreat. One thing is for sure, your life and you will never be the same. So come join us September 27th through October 1st in Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. Spots are limited, so go grab yours. Head on over to eringerner.com/powerhouse lawyer retreat. See you there. Are you an ambitious attorney who is ready to build a life that you cannot wait to wake up for? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Powerhouse Lawyers, a podcast for the powerhouse in each of us. I'm your host, Erin Gerner. And if you're ready to practice law differently, let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Powerhouse Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Erin Gerner, and I'm so excited you're here. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I think all of us can relate to on some level, and that is reconnecting to who we are outside of being an attorney. So much of our identity is tied up in our job. In our profession. I know that from personal experience. I also know that from working with hundreds of women and attorneys and hearing their stories. And it's not unusual that this happens to us. While we're all different, unique human beings, we oftentimes have a lot of the same characteristics. We're overachievers, we're smart, we're good students, we are perfectionists, we are rule followers, and throughout our lives, while we're achieving, we're also getting praised and rewarded for that achievement, therefore tying our worth and how we feel about ourselves to achieving at the highest level, to being the best, to being a perfectionist, to not making any mistakes, to chasing all of the gold stars. So you can see when we go to law school, you have these qualities, and then you get in an environment where they teach you how to think, how to act, what your future should look like. Nothing about the true practice of law, but what you quote unquote should look like and what being a lawyer is. And your full identity is tied up into this profession. It's who you become. You become the lawyer. That's how you introduce yourself. And it becomes such a large portion of who we are that we snuff out and forget the other parts of ourselves, who we really are deep down. Because at the end of the day, lawyer is just our job title. It's simply our job title. It's what we do. And it's not who we are, but it becomes who we are. In fact, I don't know how many lawyers, including myself, used to say, I'm just not creative. I'm just not a creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body. How many lawyers do you know that have said that? Have you said that about yourself? I bet you have. Do you know how many creatives I have met through Powerhouse Lawyers, through this podcast? And I'm not just talking creatives that like to draw and color. I am talking about actors and comedians and authors and artists who are wildly talented, who just haven't used the right side of their brain and had snuffed out all of that creativity in the law, because the law doesn't allow any room to be creative. It's one way to think, it's one way to write. There's no creative writing class in the law. If you've ever read a legal document, it's not creative. So, what happens when our identity becomes so tied up in our profession? Well, what happens is there eventually no more gold stars to chase. There's nothing else to achieve. You've gotten to where you quote unquote thought you were supposed to be. And now you've turned around and you're asking yourself, is this all there is? I mean, certainly I'm not supposed to feel like this after all of the work, after all the blood, sweat, and tears, after everything that I've been through, after every test I've taken, after every case I've argued. This can't be it. And the answer to that question is yes, there is so much more, but the key is reconnecting to who you are outside of being a lawyer, because you can only achieve so much, you can only make so much money, you can only win so many cases, to where you turn around and life feels hard and it doesn't feel good. You feel burned out and exhausted. You're not really sure why you're getting up in the morning. You're in a bad mood all the time. You don't enjoy what you're doing. So what now? And I have so many attorneys come to me and just say, I don't even know if I want to practice law anymore. I don't even know if I want to do this. I've just had enough. But what's so important to do is reconnect to who we are outside of being a lawyer before we, decide to switch jobs, or we decide we don't want to practice law, or we just decide to throw in the towel, or we just decide in our mind that this is just how life is going to be, because it's not. And if you listened to the earlier episodes of my podcast, I told a little bit about my story, and I'll tell more about it here. I am like many of you. I was a straight A student. I was always at the top of my class. While I did not dream of being a lawyer, I did not have any lawyers in my family. The rest of my family was in the medical profession, very high achievers. And so, law school was the next best step after college. And frankly, I really didn't know what I wanted to do after college. And in hindsight, I really wished I had done a lot more research on the next step. But nonetheless, I ended up in law school and excelled there, graduated at the top of my class, took the big firm job, had the offers, was making the money and doing all of that stuff. Exactly what I was supposed to be doing. What law school, quote unquote, taught me how to do. I got the job. I did the thing, I understood the assignment, but I was miserable. And I really, really, really thought that there was something wrong with me, that you could achieve all of this stuff and have this great, amazing, prestigious job and still feel like absolute crap on the inside. And then I became a mom while I was practicing law. And you talk about adding a whole new layer onto your identity. That is something that will completely stop you in your tracks. I left the in-house job that I took maternity leave from, one woman, and walked back in the door after maternity leave, a completely different person. But what I didn't understand at that point is why I felt so different, is because I didn't really know who I was becoming, who I wanted to be outside of this attorney job, but I was coming back into it as a mom in a whole new stage of my life, trying to navigate this environment and was so miserable and could not understand why I couldn't make this work, why I didn't feel like I belonged here anymore. And I ended up eventually walking away from that job. It was very inflexible. I couldn't work from home. This is way before COVID. That ages me. Seat time was a real big deal. It was also a boys' club. And they, just really didn't have any sympathy for the working mom. And so I left my legal profession to stay at home, thinking, surely this is going to alleviate the friction, right? This is the friction that I've been feeling. Like, this job feels so out of whack and so no longer in alignment with who I am. Certainly if I just leave and I go home and I stay home with my babies and I'm a mom, which is what I want to be, everything's going to totally be fine. It's going to fix all of this uncomfortableness and unease that I'm feeling. Well, viewers, it did the exact opposite. In fact, those 8 to 10 years after leaving the law, before finding coaching, before finding Powerhouse Lawyers, before really investing in myself, were a trudge through figuring out who Erin was outside of the law. Because just because I walked away from the profession, I realized how much my identity was tied up in it, because that's all I thought that I was. And in those years after leaving, I battled crippling lies of, you are a failure, you could not hack it, you needed to walk away because obviously you just, you weren't a good enough lawyer, you just couldn't handle it all, you weren't smart enough. Every single thing about the law that I was no longer doing because I wasn't practicing, I made it mean that I was a failure as a lawyer, that I wasn't a good lawyer, that I was no longer a lawyer, even though I still have an active bar license and to this day could practice law in 3 different states if I wanted and chose to do so. But I had wrapped my identity so tightly around being a lawyer that when I was no longer a practicing lawyer, I had no idea who I was. So I am home with my babies, trying to be the best mom, being a perfectionist, a gold star chaser, thinking that if I just did it 100% right, like I had done law school, like I had done every single job, that I was going to crush this motherhood thing. Well, every mom out there knows that you're just not going to crush motherhood. Nobody is a perfect mother. We all make mistakes. But it was a very deep growing and unraveling of who I was and who I wanted to be. And it really wasn't until I started working with a coach who was also an attorney, which is why I know the work I do with female attorneys is so valuable, because I have a resonance and an understanding with these women that nobody else can. Once I started working with that coach and really started asking myself hard questions and being radically accountable and accepting of who I was, where I wanted to go, what my dreams were, and acknowledging that being an attorney was still part of my superpower. That's still part of who I am. I'm never going to stop being an attorney. I'm never going to lose that skill set. I mean, by God, law school sears that way of thinking into your mind, and it is incredibly beneficial in many, many, many other facets outside the law. So the reason why I wanted to come on and do this podcast and, share a little bit about my story and my struggle of regaining and finding my identity outside of the law is because I know that many of you are also struggling to get a handle on, who am I outside of this profession? What do I want my life to look like and feel like? I talk a lot about legacy on this show, that feeling of, what am I going to leave behind? What generational curses and beliefs and stories am I breaking in my children? What's no longer serving me? What do I no longer want? And what do I actually want? Who am I? What is going to make Erin happy and thriving? Thus, she has happy, thriving children and a happy, thriving house, home, business, and all of those things. So I wanted to share with you 3 tips. So you at home, if you're listening to this and you're saying, gosh, Erin, this really just hit the nail on the head for me today. I have just been really struggling with who I am, why I feel so unaligned in my job. I just feel not happy. I don't know if I'm in the right place, if I'm doing the right thing, if there's something wrong with me. I just want to tell you right now, there's nothing wrong with you. There's never anything wrong with you. These thoughts and these feelings are so normal. And my job is to be here and to empower you and to help you reconcile them. So let's talk about 3 tips about reconnecting to who you are outside of the law. The first one being letting go of what other people think about you. And I'm going to stop and I'm smiling and I'm pausing for those of you on YouTube, because we all know that there are a large part of us that are people pleasers and we're perfectionists, me being recovering of both. And letting go of what other people think about you is challenging. However, it is necessary. I heard a quote a long time ago that has stuck with me, and I tell clients and people all the time, other people's opinions about you are none of your business. They're really not. You can seek counsel from other people who have been there, who have done what you want to do successfully, but you do not need anybody else's opinions. No shoulds need to apply in your life. This is your life, and you only get one. You can make money, you can get more clients, but the one thing you cannot buy back, my friend, is more time. And the sooner you stop letting other people's opinions about who you should be, what you should be doing, and how you should be doing it go, the freer you will be to move towards the person and the woman who you are ultimately meant to be. Other people's opinions are none of your business. The second thing is to reconnect to your values. I did a previous podcast episode on this. I think it was episode 2, and I'll drop it in the show notes if you'd like to go and listen to it. I walked you through an entire values exercise that I do with each of my clients. But your values are the basis and the foundation of everything that you do. They are where your decisions stem from. All your yeses, all your nos, your priorities, how you are showing up in this world is based on your values. So sit down and get reconnected to those. What are they? What do you want your life to look like in 5 years, financially, with your family, spiritually, your health? Where do you want those things to be? Start getting still and quiet, journaling on those things, and reconnect to the things that are most important to you. Because when you are connected to your values and your priorities, yeses become easy, nos become no problem. You can draw boundaries, enforce boundaries, and truly, truly create the life that you are meant to have because you are living according to your terms. Another tip number 3, this is so important. You have to make time for things outside of your job. There is a lot of life happening outside the 4 corners of your office. You are around attorneys all day long, and that is not exposing you to what is possible in the world. It's only showing you that there are other attorneys. So, what did you love to do? Did you love to dance when you were young? Did you learn to paint? How about a wine tasting or a salsa class, or just maybe that girls' night out to dinner, or a vacation away, or whatever it is? Maybe it's riding horses. Maybe it's listening to music. Like I said, maybe it's dancing. Reconnecting to those things that you like to do outside of work and making time for those opens up your mind to things that are possible. There's a whole nother world out there outside of the law firm. Lawyers think they have community because they work in an office. That's not community. That's just simply working with the same people day in and day out. And while you may be friends with people in that office, I'm not disparaging that. I'm just saying that cannot be your end all be all. Because if it is, you are going to think that your only choice is the choice that you have, which is to be a lawyer and to do exactly what you are doing, that you can't change, that change isn't possible, that things can't be different, but connecting to people outside of the law, connecting to people outside of your office who are doing what you want to do, who have achieved at the level that you want to achieve, who are women who are making this profession work for them. Those are the relationships, those are the activities, those are the people that you need to be surrounding yourself with. And the very last thing, because I can't leave an Erin Gerner podcast or a Powerhouse Lawyers conversation or podcast without saying the fourth and final recommendation I have is community. I heard the most amazing quote on a podcast the other day, and it has stuck with me in a way that not many things do. She said that grit without community and connection is simply resistance. I'm going to repeat that again. Grit without community and connection is simply resistance. Y'all, lawyers are gritty as hell. We have made it through really hard school. We've taken really hard bar exams. We do really, really, really hard things on a daily basis. We are gritty AF, but we are also very resistant to change, very resistant to asking for help. Because when you sit in the seat of authority all day and people, your clients and your coworkers expect you to be the expert, expect you to know the answer, it becomes very challenging for you to not be the expert, for you to ask for help, for you to say, hey, I need to lean on some other people to get answers. Grit without community and connection is simply resistance. That's beating your head against a wall. So the fourth and final, and in my opinion, the most precious and important key to reconnecting with who you are outside of the law is community. Getting yourself in rooms with other like-minded women who want the same things as you. There is no faster way to be reconnected and reassured of who the hell you are is to get in rooms with other women who are equally badass and who are there to encourage you, support you, inspire you, and show you what's possible. Now that, my friend, will show you who the hell you are faster than anything. You are the combination of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. And if that is only the attorneys in your office, then you are doing yourself a disservice, my friend. There are so many women in the law. There are communities, there are opportunities. If you are looking, I am hosting a retreat at the end of September. You heard about it at the beginning of this podcast. It's in the show notes. That is an exceptional community of women that if you are looking to reconnect to who you are, build your dreams, and further your career and where you want to go, that is a room that you need to be in. But to summarize, you are more than your job. Lawyer is simply your job title, not the whole of who you are. In fact, you are filled with a plethora of superpowers that you just haven't tapped into because you've been on autopilot trying to get to where you are going on speed dial with the pedal pressed all the way down for your entire life. But my goal in this podcast and what I hope you hear today is I want you to take a minute and I want you to reconnect with who you are deep down, which is a badass, also a lawyer, but a badass in every other facet of their life. Once you start leaning into that and reconnecting to who you are, life does not seem hard. Things ease up. You can see the next step more clearly. You have less judgment and more compassion for yourself. My friends, listen, We're perfectionists. What can we say? We're overachievers. What can we say? When used for good, those are hella qualities, because if I want the best lawyer defending me for my life, you better bet your bottom dollar I want them to be a perfectionist and want to be a gold star chaser. But oftentimes those qualities take over in the not good area, and we start to attach everything that we accomplish in our job. It starts to become attached to our worth as people. And that is the exact opposite of what it is. You are more than a lawyer. You're a badass and you're a powerhouse. Go out there and remember it. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Powerhouse Lawyers podcast. If you loved this show, take a screenshot, share it with a fellow sister in the law, with someone who needs it, because I know you're the type of woman who wants to see other women win. And the way we get this message out to more women in the law is please go and leave a review of the show. Every time you do that, it helps us get in more people's ears, meaning more women get to listen to this message. Always DM me, show recommendations, anybody you want to hear from, topics. I'm here for you. Remember, go out there and be a powerhouse.